This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And I'm Evan Grant.
Don't look now, but the Rangers have won 5 of the last 7 games, including taking 2 of 3 from a pair of division leaders in each of the last 2 series separated by the All-Star break.
They did win a pair in Houston before the All-Star break and then just came back and won the first 2 against Detroit before getting shut down by Tarek Skubal.
This week we'll talk to the last Rangers pitcher to win 20 games in a season, right-hander Rick Helling, who did it in 1998. And we'll unveil a bracket for a fan vote that will determine the top regular season moment in club history. More on those moments later in the podcast.
But key word here, there are prizes involved. Listen, Sports Day Rangers is our weekly spinoff of the Dallas Morning News Sports Day Insider podcast. You can find it in the Sports Day Insider feed wherever you consume podcasts. And I did help somebody yesterday actually find the feed and download it, so it's easy to do if I can do it. Don't forget to check out our last episode, which featured an interview with a guy who largely stays out of the limelight, but opened up to us, Josh Hamilton.
And if you want to interact with the show, we can find each of us on X. I'm at Ranger Blake, and Evan is Evan_P_Grant.
John really has an issue with the underscores. But you can also reach out to the Dallas Morning News on any of the paper's social media channels. You know them all, and you know I'm omnipresent on them all.
Bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Baker Brothers.
Great service.
So we're sitting here as we do this podcast. The Rangers coming off a 2 out of 3 victory over the two wins in 3 games over the team with the best record in the majors, the Detroit Tigers. Rangers had 12 hits in the series, Evan. They only gave up 3 runs. And what can you – it's a small sample. Is it encouraging? How do you look at this as we go into the second part of the second half?
Well, John, we're at a point where the most important numbers are how many games you win in a series. And the Rangers needed to win 2 out of 3 in Houston. They needed to win 2 out of 3 against the Tigers. I think they need to go 6-3 on this current 9-game homestand, winning all 3 series or better. So all of that is very encouraging. Then if you start to get down to more of a granular level, there are some things that are a little bit more distressing. Most significantly, against Detroit, which, again, has the best record in the American League, 3 straight games of less than 5 hits. Reminded me very much of how the Rangers won 3 games in Cincinnati at the start of the year with not very much offense whatsoever, so to speak, or 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati, with not very much offense to speak of. And they got off to that fast start, and then they came right back to earth because – the offense did not allow for sustainable hot runs.
Well, and it's a little troubling right now. Obviously, you're down Jake Berger, you're down Sam Haggerty, Josh Young is still in the minors, and you look at the lineup against a lefty on Sunday night, and you've got Cody Freeman, you've got Justin Foscue, and then, guys like that at the end of your lineup, Ezekiel Duran. And I'm just wondering, and you've got some lefties, in this Oakland series. And I mean, is that something where you try to give some of these left-handed bats on your bench some time, or do you just kind of stick with the platoon here while these other guys are out?
I mean, you may have to, play against the percentages. The percentages say that you go with the platoon. But here's the bottom line. You look at the last 3 hitters in that Rangers order last night, which were Cody Freeman making his first big league start, Foscue and Ezekiel Duran, and they entered the game hitting 119 against lefties for the year. The lefties that the Rangers sat down, Evan Carter, Josh Smith, Alejandro Osuna, and Rowdy Tellez, they entered the game hitting 180. So neither of them is attractive, and I think Bruce Bochy kind of leaned on the idea that right-handers probably have a better chance against Skubal than lefties do, but there were no advantages to be found. There were just lesser disadvantages. And I think right now, the biggest issue with playing the lefties like Carter or Smith against a lefty might be, does it impact how they would then perform against a righty? Would they have failure there, and would it put them into a funk? I don't know what the answers are. I mean, I think he was half joking, but Bruce Bochy looked at me on the bench before the game when we were talking. He said, "Do you have any right-handed hitters that you've got?" And he knew what he was going into, and this was the situation. My biggest issue here is not so much that the Rangers started these right-handers that weren't really well-equipped against Skubal. My biggest issue is it doesn't matter whether the pitcher's right-handed or left-handed. The Rangers make good pitchers all look like Skubal. And I've got some numbers that kind of back that up a little bit that, to me, are distressing.
So, and then at the end of the game, they bring Will Vest in to get Langford out in the 8th. And then the Rangers, with the meat of their batting order there in the 9th, go out on 6-7 Vest, just very aggressive, but one run down, needing just one run to tie the game. It was pretty quick.
Yeah, and look, Simeon got a pitch down the middle. Seager's swing was on a ball that was, if it was in the strike zone, it was the very bottom outside corner. And I know Corey's an aggressive hitter, and that the majority of the time that's going to work for him, or the majority of the time compared to other hitters that's going to work for him. But I think that was a situation where he probably owed himself a better swing or a better pitch to swing at. You get into situations, and this is another thing that a guy like Skubal does to you is, he just puts you in a bad head frame, bad head space. Although, I mean, Corey Seager owns Tarek Skubal.
Correct.
He's 8 for 11 against him, 8 for 11 against him in his career. I want to go back to this thing, though, John. You take Skubal and you take that top third of pitchers in major leagues, 90 innings or more in ERA. There's 87 pitchers who have had 90 innings or more going into this past weekend. So I took the top 29, top third, top tier for me. Those are the kinds of pitchers you'd face if you get to the playoffs.
Correct.
Right? The Rangers are 5-17 in games started against those opponents. You aren't going to win more than half of the games against those guys. But those guys, when I went back and I looked at their records, those guys, their teams won about 60% of the time. Against the Rangers, they're winning 80% of the time. And that's the thing that concerns me is this team, for all the narrative that if this team can squeak into the playoffs with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi at the front of the rotation, they've got a pretty good shot. I would suggest that they're going to be facing top-tier pitchers throughout the playoffs, and this offense doesn't have much of a shot. I think they're hitting – I went back and I looked at these numbers. They're hitting 195 against those guys. So that is the thing that the Rangers have still got to address.
So let's look at personnel a little bit. Chris Martin got hurt on Sunday night, pulled a muscle, whatever. Eovaldi was scratched from the Sunday night game. What do you see from a rotation here and a bullpen situation? You got John Gray, conceivably, that's close to coming back.
I mean, that was going to be my answer. Is I think that whatever the situation is, providing both guys aren't out for a significant period of time, you've got a really good plug-in solution ready to come back. I think that Martin's situation is probably a little bit more significant than Eovaldi's. Eovaldi threw pitches off of flat ground on Sunday and felt pretty good doing that. I think the Rangers are still holding out the possibility that he could start on Wednesday against the parts unknown Athletics, as I've taken to calling them. But Martin, they weren't sure. He was getting imaging as we record this on Monday. He's getting imaging on Monday morning on the back of his knee, kind of calf area, and he had problems a couple pitches earlier than that. So for me.
And he's got a history of that with his legs. And he's
sure.
a big guy, and it's a constant battle for him.
For me, it all points to John Gray going into Chris's role, kind of as a eighth inning guy. John could potentially be more of a multi-inning guy in that role than Chris is. The biggest question I think going into it is, how often can you pitch John Gray, and how sharp will he be right out of it? Because all things considered, when you miss as much time as John did, and then you go back to the pitching program, it's basically like you're starting the whole spring training build-up again. And he's at this point, he's kind of like in the middle of what spring training would be. Now, if he's coming back as a reliever, maybe it's a little bit more advanced, but I think there's still going to be some command and fine tuning that's got to be done. So that's going to take a little bit of an adjustment. And I don't think it changes anything. If this team is going to be a buyer at the deadline, and certainly having gotten back to 500 and momentarily above 500, you can see that as a more realistic possibility. As bad as the offense has been, I think that the more pressing need is still going to be to go out and get a late inning reliever.
And we can talk a little bit about that. We're 10 days away as we tape this, and and again, as you've talked about, it's still kind of which way do you go with these bubble teams, from the Rangers at 500 down to teams like the Twins or whatever that are 3 or 4 under 500, and the Angels are right there. Right. I mean, Rangers are only a game ahead of the Angels. Yeah. So, what as we sit here today, and again, I think the trade deadline should probably be pushed back. The media starts talking about this the 1st of June. They are obsessed with it, with lists and players and everything.
Are you saying anything about the list of relievers that I ran in Sunday's paper, John?
Personally, I think this takes as always, and I've never been it's for a PR guy. It's always been a little distracting. But sitting here, I guess today, your best guess?
I think my best guess is that, look, with the trade of Dane Dunning to free up a little bit more money, and the Rangers saved about $500,000, $600,000, it's clear to me that they're trying to make as much room as possible to add a little bit of payroll at the deadline. And I think that's where they would go. I think that, Ray Davis has made it clear that he wants to stay below the $241 million CBT threshold. I think the Rangers probably right now have somewhere between $2.5 to $3 million available that they could potentially add. And I think that providing they win series against 2 teams under 500, they will try to look to add. Now, if you lose series or finish 500 against teams below 500 in the A's and the Braves, I think it may push you in the other direction where you do try and maybe say we're going to peel off a piece here or two, but I just don't think there's much the Rangers can do. They're not going to trade either Evaldi or DeGrom. They're certainly not going to trade Corey Seager. So then you start to get into the expiring contracts, and I don't know how much value they'd get for Adolis Garcia right now. I don't know that they'd get any value for Jonah Heim, who's arbitration eligible. You're certainly not going to get much value for middle relievers who have pitched well but are on one-year expiring contracts. So I just don't know that there's much I can do. And even though there's a big part of my brain that says this is playing against the percentages to try and win a playoff spot here, I think that you're in a situation where that's kind of what you got to do.
Well, what do you think? And I know we need to get to Rick Helling here. Do you think the trade deadline?
It's not like he's on hold at this minute.
Right. Okay. Do you think Do you think the trade deadline should be pushed? What is your kind of feel?
I think baseball has created some real issues for itself with pushing the draft back to the All-Star break and the trade deadline on the 31st. Not to mention that you have the celebration of the Hall of Fame right in the middle of all that. I do think you could space it out a little bit more, either push the draft back into June so that scouts can then spend real time between that and the trade deadline, getting better evaluation and not be physically and mentally exhausted at the same time, or move the trade deadline back to where the second week of August or so that teams have kind of a month between the All-Star break and the middle of August to figure things out. And I think it might also make it even more appealing to some clubs, because if you push it back that much further, that's 2 weeks less of pay that you'd have to worry about adding. So it may make teams more willing to add players at the trade deadline. That for me all makes a lot of sense, but I also know that there's a lot of times that what I think makes sense and what Rob Manfred does aren't the same category.
So we'll see what happens. It's an interesting time every year, and there's some great Rangers stories that we hopefully we can get into in the next couple of weeks about the trade deadline. But But for now, let's go on to our special guest this week. Rick Helling won 20 games for the Rangers in 1998. And again, as we mentioned, the last time in club history a pitcher has reached that mark, and maybe he'll be the last, who knows. He ultimately spent 8 years with Texas and played a very key role on the division-winning teams in 1998 and 1999.
Yeah, I know you want to talk to him as the most recent 20-game winner in Rangers history, but he might also be the last 20-game winner in Rangers history. But, John, I'm going to interrupt you before we get to Rick Helling. I want everybody to stick around after the interview to learn more about our big upcoming vote on the greatest regular season moments in Rangers history. We've set up a bracket of 16 moments. We didn't want to kill people with 64 moments, so we stuck it to 16, the Sweet 16. Each week you will vote on the matchups, crown the most iconic Rangers regular season moment, maybe win a prize in the process.
And this week's Archives in Arlington is actually going to spend a little time on the top moment in the seating as judged by editors of the Dallas Morning News. I want to make that very clear. And we'll discuss.
You saying you disagree with this?
I have a few thoughts on that, but we'll provide details about the timeline. But we'll get to that. But let's go to Rick Helling, who'll be our special guest. Our guest on today's SportsDay Rangers was the Rangers' #1 pick out of Stanford in 1992. Pitched 12 seasons in the big leagues. For the Rangers from 94 to 96 and 97 to 01. We'll get into that on a couple of trade deadline acquisitions. 93 and 81 in his career. He's the all-time winner in wins from a native of North Dakota. And with the Rangers, he is 7th all-time in wins with 68. Had a real good run with the team from 98 to 2001, pitching over 200 innings each year with 12-plus wins, and is the last 20-game winner in Texas Rangers annals. He was 20-7 in 1998, a longtime special assistant for player services for the Major League Baseball Players Association. We're happy to have Rick Helling join us. Thanks, Rick, for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Great to see you guys.
So we're going to get this started, and the trade deadline as we're coming up to it is interesting in your case. You in 19 and we'll get to that, but I want to kind of go back to the start. You didn't have a lot of minor league experience when you made the team in 94, made the rotation, and we're kind of in and out of the rotation for 2 or 3 years there before you got to establish yourself. What was that like, and what kind of perseverance did it take? And again, for you then became a starter, because Rangers have some young starters now. And what's that like coming out of college and not having a lot of pro experience and trying to make it in the big leagues?
Yeah, it's obviously difficult. I mean, playing Major League Baseball is incredibly hard to do. It's incredibly hard to get there. I think it's something like 2% of the guys drafted make it to the major leagues for a day. So just to get there is really hard. Coming up with the Rangers back then, in those days, we had an established veteran rotation. So I had a really good year in the minor leagues, my first full year, and felt like I was pitching well enough to be in the big leagues, but there was just nowhere to go. These guys, I think the entire rotation from 1 through 5 had numerous years in the big leagues with a lot of success. So there wasn't really anywhere for me to go. You looked around the league, and I'm sure guys still do this today at other teams and other rotations, and you're like, man, I could be pitching for that team, but I was with a team that didn't need a young starting pitcher at that time. And then, as you mentioned, I had a couple of years up and down, experienced failure really for the first time in my life as a pitcher. The games are very humbling, and it takes a lot of perseverance. It takes a lot of self-belief. It's easy to doubt yourself, whether you're good enough or not. But fortunately, I was able to work my way through it. Got a chance to make some starts with the Rangers. And then, as you mentioned, the trade to the Marlins. The Rangers had a good team. They were going to be in the playoffs, and they were looking for a little relief help, and they were willing to send me and another young starter, Ryan Dempster, over to the Marlins to get some more pitching. So it worked out for me. It gave me a chance to make I think 9 or 10 starts in the big leagues. at the end of the 96 season there. Well, maybe not that many with the Marlins. It was less, 5 or 6. But anyways, I got a chance to pitch over there and pitch really well at the end of the year for them. And that actually started, I think, my journey as a starting pitcher in the big leagues and got me going.
Yeah, that was I was covering the Marlins when you came over there, and you got those, I think, 6 starts in September and pitched really well. And then I moved here to cover the Rangers, and it's like you came and followed me. I was a little bit creeped out at that moment.
We were hoping he would have stayed with the Marlins, Rick, but that's ancient history at this point.
But so I think both of those trades kind of like had some impact on you. The trade to the Marlins gave you that opportunity to pitch. What did the trade back to the Rangers do for you? Because I would assume that made your head swim a little bit at that point.
Well, yeah, to say I was surprised, would be an understatement. I think the feeling most players have once a team trades you is that they're giving up on you and they don't believe in you, and that's definitely what I felt. So to be coming back to the very same team that traded me roughly a year later was actually very surprising. It worked out great. Obviously, I got like same thing that year at the Marlins. 97, I made bunch of starts. I also pitched in relief a little bit. I came back to the Rangers. I got a chance to take the ball every 5 days. I did, I think, a very similar thing. I pitched great at the end of that year, kind of established myself as somebody who could potentially be in the rotation for the long term. And it was great to be back. I love my time in with the Rangers from the beginning when I was drafted and came up. And obviously the run we had there from 98 through 2001 was pretty special and great memories for my wife and I and our family.
I want to say this, because John gives these like really formal introductions, and my introduction for you would have been the toughest pitcher in Rangers ballpark history era, because you pitched when it was incredibly difficult there with the jet stream, and it was also kind of the steroid era.
It wasn't kind of. It was.
Good point, Rick. Good point. But my whole point is, like, I think some of that stuff that you went through early on, I don't want to say chip on your shoulder, but I do think it helped you toughen up to the point where you're like, I'm just going to go out there and believe in myself and do what I do, and that's going to be enough for me. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think at one point, probably at my lowest point when I was in the minors with the Rangers, kind of scuffling and my velocity was down, and we can talk about velocity later compared to back then compared to now, but I was never a velocity pitcher. I mean, I had a good fastball and I threw it by guys, I think mostly because of deception and the way the ball came out of my hands. But, I had some struggles and I started doubting myself, and eventually I just woke up and said, listen, you're going to pitch the way you pitch. And if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And that's just all there is to it. And time will tell. So I got back to being me, throwing the way I threw with confidence and aggressive and challenging hitters. I didn't care if I was throwing 88 or 94 that day. I was going to challenge guys and throw strikes. The best hitters in the world are successful 30% of the time. Now it's more like 24% of the time. But, the way I looked at it, I was going to take my best shot. And, I prided myself, like I joked back in the day, you guys have probably heard me say this, like I didn't feel like I had a lot of ability, but I had the two most important ones, which were durability and accountability. I took the ball every 5 days. I'd give you everything I had. We had a really good team, a really good offense. And the way I looked at it was like, I'm going to stay out there as long as I can, give us as many innings as I can, and hopefully we outscore them. And sometimes we won 2-1, and sometimes we won 9-6. And to me, it didn't really matter how we won as long as we won. John was talking to Larry Hardy, who still comes around the ballpark a lot. John, tell Rick what you and Larry discussed the other day.
Yeah, we talked about it. I sit with Larry Hardy a lot of nights up in the press box, in the broadcast booth when he goes.
And Larry Kids, right, for those of you who don't remember, was the Rangers bullpen coach.
He was the bullpen coach
and eventually pitching coach there too. So.
And he just told we were talking about you and coming into the rotation because I asked him when he got back in '97. Missed a chance, obviously, in a world championship in Florida. But they said, well, it just was the makeup, and that he had the mindset that, this team was very good offensively, and it was just kind of his mindset. He was going to go out and give up fewer runs that we scored. And that's the way they kind of saw it. Is that kind of what the mindset was in a lot of cases?
Yeah, for me it was for sure. And, I'm a winner. Like I care about winning. I've never cared about personal accolades. I've never cared about my ERA or strikeouts or any of those kind of things. If I could help the team win, that's what I wanted to do. And, um, you know, there was critics of me back then. I gave up too many home runs. My ERA was too high, whatever, all these things. But, at the end of the day, I took the ball every 5 days. I gave our team a chance to win almost nightly. We won most of those games, which was awesome. And I don't look at it was because of me. I think it was because of the team and the offense we had. And I was fortunate enough to pitch for a team with a great offense and throw enough innings to get some wins out of it. But I could care less if I had 300 strikeouts a year or 100, or if my ERA was 2.4 or 4.4. None of that mattered to me. I just wanted to win, and that's the way I always approached it.
And one of those critics occasionally on home runs was probably me, because I do remember, I think it was in '99 when you did give up a bunch of home runs, but you still won 13 games and pitched 200 plus innings. You called me aside at one point in time, and we talked about the home runs, and you thought that I was focused on the home runs and not going out and doing what the team needed to do, which was pitch innings and give them a chance to win. And you understood that about the team. But what I really respected about it was you called me aside one-on-one. And, there's times when players and media are going to butt heads. But for you to call me aside one-on-one and talk and explain your perspective remains one of the, profound conversations I've had with a player where you got a chance to actually understand the player's mindset. And it gave me a whole different outlook on you, and it really did kind of let me understand just how you approach the game, and that it was a team game and you weren't worried about what your specific numbers were. You were concerned about giving this team a chance to win.
Yeah, you summed it up perfectly. I'm not one of these guys in my day, or look back at how it would be or any of that. But if I pitched back then the way these guys pitch now, there's no doubt in my mind my ERA would be a lot lower. There's no doubt in my mind I'd have way more strikeouts. But that's just how it wasn't back then. It wasn't that way for me personally, and it wasn't that way for the league. Starting pitchers were asked to throw innings. They were asked to get their teams deep into games. They were asked to save the bullpen. And there was plenty of games. I've had friends of mine here that'll find an old game of mine on YouTube, and they'll be like, I can't believe you were out there that long. They should have took you out. I'm like, but that's not what I did. That's me specifically. In the pitchers back then, we were asked to throw 115, 125, 130 pitches a night. Bullpens weren't as deep back then. The guys coming out weren't throwing 105 like they are now. It's different. It's a lot easier to bring in a guy throwing 105 with a nasty slider than it is to somebody throwing 87 with a sinker. So things are different for sure. But yeah, if I'd have pitched I pitched the contact, right? That's how we pitched. And if we were ahead 7-1 in the fifth inning, I'm going to throw you a lot of fastballs and try to get quick outs. That's just all there was to it. And somebody had a solo home run, I could care less. Now we're up 7-2. So that's just the way I looked at it. I didn't pitch to keep my ERA low. I didn't pitch for strikeouts. I pitched to try to win and throw innings. To me, if I didn't throw at least 6 innings a night, I was upset with how I pitched. I didn't care if I gave up 1 run or 0 runs. If I threw 5 in the third innings, that was a bad start to me.
Well, and that's, John, 4 consecutive seasons of 215 or more innings, and 5 seasons in a row when you go back to the first year in Arizona of 30 or more starts, and that's the kind of consistency you just don't get in a starter right now. And I know that was Doug Melvin and Johnny Oates' biggest issue was always give me predictability. And if you give me that, then I can work around everything.
And that was kind of the case with the entire rotation in those days. But you did mention the era you pitched in, and you were one of the first guys that kind of called out the steroid era while you were still playing. Probably wasn't a very popular thought at that time, but what was your whole mindset, Rick, at the time? Because you were one of the early players to call it out.
Yeah, I think the simplest way I explained to people is why I said something is I just felt it wasn't a level or fair playing field, and not for me personally. Again, I could care less. It was I had a lot of friends of mine that were contemplating whether they should take steroids or not, or I don't really want to, but I feel like I have to keep my job, those kind of things. And to me, that's just not a fair spot to put players in. If in any walk of life, there's people that are cheaters and are willing to cheat and do whatever it takes to get ahead, whether it's cheat on their spouse or cheat on their taxes or embezzle money from their company or whatever it may be. And you're not going to stop those people. That's just who they are. They like to find shortcuts. They try to do anything they can to get ahead, and they're willing to take the repercussions if it happens at a later point. The problem I had were the people that didn't want to cheat, that felt like they had to because they were losing their jobs to guys that were cheating. And to me, that just wasn't fair. And then again, there's a certain percentage of people that no matter what you offer them, no matter what you say, like you said, hey, Rick, you could have a 20-year career striking out 250 guys a year, winning Cy Youngs. All you got to do is this. I would have never done it. That's just not who I am. And that's, so to me, there's 10 to 15% of people in both those categories. And it was the other 80%, 70, 80% of guys that were stuck in the middle. And the majority of those guys back then, I think, were making the wrong choice because they felt like they had to keep up. And to me, that wasn't fair. So that's the main reason why I spoke out, and we've gone on obviously since then and have the best performance enhancing drug testing program in the world, and things are great. And these guys now are playing a clean game where they know everybody on the field's doing the same things. And like I mentioned before, there are guys that still cheat. They still try to cheat. And, the good thing now is you're going to get caught. So.
Hey, the one thing I didn't understand in that era, and again, I was a little bit younger at that point, or a lot younger at that point, is that there were all these accusations going around, but there were never, but people weren't going to come out and name names. And I think fans had some issue. Well, tell us who's doing it. But players didn't feel it was their role to point out who was doing it. What was the player perspective on that?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think part of it is, what stays in the clubhouse, what happens in the clubhouse stays in the clubhouse. That's, your team, your teammate, even as an opposing player, you're all in the same profession. You're all of the same fraternity. We're all in the Players Association. We all care about each other. And also, like, I've had people ask me that question, like, well, who was doing it? I couldn't tell you with 100% certainty who was doing it at all. I didn't see anybody actually stick a syringe in their butt. Like, I didn't see anybody popping pills that said big bottle that said steroids on them. Like, I don't, if somebody put me in front of Congress and said, you're going to go to jail for 100 years if you don't tell me everybody that did it, I couldn't tell you who did it, but the eyeball test and the players that you played against over the years, see them do things that they had never done before. Seeing pitchers gain 5-6 miles an hour velocity over one off season, or guys that used to hit 7 home runs are now hitting 45. That's just not normal. Those things don't happen. As an athlete, when something is unnatural. Again, I couldn't tell you exactly who it was. There's probably some guys that have been accused of doing it that didn't do it, and there's probably plenty of guys that have not been accused that did. So it wasn't always the guys that were big and jacked up, the most muscular guys. There's plenty of guys that were, probably normal sized guys that were doing it. So again, I couldn't tell you who, but it was a problem for sure.
What year did you? I'm trying to remember back because I don't remember what year you became the player rep for the Rangers. Was it 98 or 99?
98, and I don't know if I ever technically was a rep for the Rangers. I was always just the league rep. So
okay.
I mean, I helped out with the Rangers, but I think, which I actually think is a good thing if you have two separate, like I know Semyon now is
right.
Obviously very involved with the Rangers, but I don't even think he's their team rep.
No,
so I think it's good if you have two separate, and I think I was always just the league rep. But yeah, that was 98.
But what got you involved with the Players Association?
Everything I've always done from the time I was a kid, I just wanted to be informed about it. Like I guess I wanted to be educated and understand. And obviously I knew the game of baseball on the field, but I wanted to understand the business side of it and all the little things that go into, salaries and pensions and healthcare and all that stuff. So I showed an interest. My senior thesis, at Stanford, my senior year was the economics and profitability of Major League Baseball. So I kind of came into it with intrigue and wanting to be educated. So once I established myself after John mentioned a few years of up and down and trying to figure it out, once I got there and proved I was a big league starting pitcher, I got involved, and it's been great ever since.
We don't see you as much as we used to because you don't have this team. In your special assistant role, you're a liaison for a handful of teams, right? And I think Javier Lopez is now the Rangers assigned liaison. But so we don't see
Vasquez.
what's that?
Javier Vasquez.
Javier Vasquez. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we don't see you as much as we used to, and that really bums me out. But can you explain what your role is in that when you are around? And I guess you've got what, 5 or 6 teams?
Actually, yeah, 10 actually. So
do you really?
A third of the league. My role is basically my title special assistant, as John mentioned, but my role is help the players, the current players, all players for that matter, 1,200. But I focus more on the 10 teams. Educate the players, help them with any kind of concerns or questions, issues they may have on or off the field. Keep them updated on anything that's happening in the league, business-wide or on the rule. All this stuff with the bigger bases and the no more shifts and all the stuff that's been happening over the last few years. Get input from them on their thoughts, get that feedback and get it back to our office in New York. As we get closer to CBA negotiations, we educate the players on, things we feel are important, those kind of things. And that's basically it. It's, some of my friends like to joke that I don't have an office and I'm not working a 9 to 5, but, I tell them that I'm literally a 24-hour on call. My office is my phone, and I get calls from players at 6 a.m. who are on the East Coast, and I get calls and texts from players at 4 a.m. who are on the West Coast. So I'm always there to help guys with anything that's going on, any questions they may have, whether it's public or private. Everything's confidential, and I'm basically just a resource for the players and try to help them with their careers.
And we'll let you go here, but I just wanted you follow up a little bit on this. You mentioned your mindset. With today's game, pitch clock, everything that's involved with the starting pitcher and everything, is this an era that you would have liked to have pitched in?
It's definitely different. I would have adjusted. I feel like that's what players do best, is they adjust, right? I think I would have adjusted and been able to pitch in this area. I think I would have thrown a lot more breaking balls. Like these guys now that are throwing 100 are throwing 38% fastballs, which is crazy to me, but I would have thrown a lot more breaking balls for sure. There was a joke the other day, a group of friends, we were talking about how little the starting pitchers pitch. And one of them was a former reliever who said, well, maybe I could have been a starting pitcher in this era. And I said, well, I don't think I could be, because I would probably get in a fight with my manager, my pitching coach, and the entire analytics department if they tried to take me out after 4 1/3 innings and 57 pitches. So that part's different. But yeah, I think I would have adjusted, and I think I could have pitched. I would have had to actually work on my velocity a lot to get it up into the at least mid-90s to be able to hang around with these guys nowadays.
It's funny. The Rangers had over the weekend, they had 2 instances where they swung 3-0. Josh Smith swung on a 3-0 in a 3-0 situation, popped the ball up with a runner at third base and less than 2 outs. And then the next night, Rowdy Tellez hit a 3-0 pitch for a home run. And so Buster Olding was here over the weekend for ESPN, and conversation got going about 3-0 swinging. And I went back and I looked, and the Rangers are second in the league in 3-0 swings. But the whole thing was, Rick, that like Boch was talking about this Sunday night, that 3-0 is maybe the one time you're actually going to see a fastball. It's a fastball count where you actually see a fastball now.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Again, I know it's analytics, and everybody's being taught to get swing and miss, and they don't want the ball in play. It's almost the exact opposite of what we wanted back in the day, right? We wanted quick outs and innings, and that's what we wanted. These guys, again, I understand why. If the ball's in play, there's a chance for danger, and these guys have such great stuff now that they're using their great stuff to strike guys out, and that's just how it is. So I get it, but yeah, you're right. It's just it's. Me, if I had a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, I'd be throwing that thing 96% of the time. That's all there is to it. To me, that's an incredibly hard pitch to hit, but I do understand the analytics of it for sure.
Well, and look, I mean, you understood what you did well, and you trusted your pitch, and it's the one thing that you always hear from pitching coaches is conviction's the most important thing that a pitcher's got to have, and you always had that. Before we let you go, I think we've kind of buried this, though, right? I mean, you are the second greatest home run hitter to come out of Shanley High School.
That's funny. I don't know. Well, actually, I probably am. Yeah, my buddy was a very good hitter, but I did hit a few more home runs than him that I played Legion ball with. We were both Shanley guys, but
Who's the all-time leader in home runs from
I'm
Shanley High School?
I'm only a few behind Roger Maris.
There you go.
We're
Two
not
players
too far
from the
behind.
same high school,
Right.
Roger Maris and Rick Helling from Shanley High School in Fargo, North Dakota.
Well, this has been fun, Rick. I think Ranger fans remember this era very fondly. This was an era, obviously, where the Rangers were known for their offense, right? The offense was amazing, but what Rick Helling and Aaron Seeley, those two guys in 98 and 99, we don't win, obviously, without what they accomplished. So, Rick, thanks a lot. Hopefully we'll see you along the way here in the second half, and we appreciate the time.
And just know this too, Ricky. You know, T.R. Sullivan, who is retired now, and I continue to pester John that you belong in the Rangers Hall of Fame. So you've got your advocates here. I know that honors don't mean anything to you, but we believe that you should be in the Hall of Fame here.
Well, I appreciate that. Like I said before, I had an awesome time as a Ranger. Loved every minute of it there. My wife and I started our family there, so it's a special place to us. I love it when I can get down there and see you guys, see the team occasionally. Which, like you said, is not as much as it used to be, but I do love coming back there. I will say I do have the record for most home runs given up by a player from Fargo Shanley High School, though. So that record's probably pretty safe.
And the Rangers record as well. So we'll leave it at that. Thanks, Rick. Take care. We appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you guys.
The editors of the Dallas Morning News have selected 16 of the biggest regular season moments in Texas Rangers history and compiled a bracket that have seeded those moments 1 through 16.
You can find the bracket at dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers. Voting for each round will last from 6 a.m. on Wednesday to 11:50 p.m. on Sunday, and we will reveal the winners each week on this podcast as they advance.
The first round starts today, Wednesday, July 23rd, and runs through Sunday, July 27th. And the whole contest will run through mid-August.
Remember, you'll only vote on each week's matchups, beginning with the 8 first-round matchups. Whichever moments advance will be part of the next week's round of voting until we crown a champion. Should also note that each week there will be giveaways for those that vote on the moments. For the first week, there are 3 giveaways that you can win: signed DMN World Series covers by players who appeared on those covers: Marcus Semien, Josh Spores, and Jonah Heim, and the World Series mob coverage of Travis Jankowski and Dane Dunning.
One more time, you can find the bracket at dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers. All you need to do is enter your email address, and you'll be ready to vote. You can join the vote at any stage and are eligible to vote on all current and future rounds. Now, the top seed in the bracket is the subject of today's Archives in Arlington, Kenny Rogers' perfect game. And I'll get into the seedings in a minute. And we're just going to go through this quickly because we do want to talk about the seedings. But the timing is that time. It's that time of year, July 28th, 1994, versus California. And again, this moment was judged to be the number 1 seed in this contest. And because it kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, Kenny was in his second full season as a major league starter. The Rangers were under 500 at the time. They were in first place in the division. It was
hurtling towards a strike.
It was hurling towards a strike, and he pitched the 11th regular season complete game, perfect game of all time, first ever by an American League lefty, and the first in the American League since old Mike Witt did it to the Rangers on my first day with the franchise in 1984. And what people remember, Evan, about it, obviously, is the Rusty Gurr catch off Rex Hudler to start the 9th inning. Rusty was playing center field in that game. What I remember about it was Kenny had no idea he'd pitched a perfect game when the game ended. He thought he had a no-hitter, but I do remember him coming off the field and sitting on the bench, and I went down there and said, you just pitched, the 11th perfect game at the time in regular season history. And he had he was so much in the moment. He just wasn't really aware of that.
Like, what was his I'm curious, like, on the bench, what's going...
You know the way Kenny did not have a lot of reaction right away. The team kind of stormed the field. Like I said, it was an interesting year because 94 we opened the new ballpark, which is his competition here in round one, which is very interesting. We were in first place. We were
10 games under 500.
It was an interesting team. Jose Canseco was our best player. He had 2 home runs in that game. That was the night. It was 96 degrees. They lit a pair of Canseco's cleats on fire in the dugout to try to get. It was a bizarre night, but Kenny didn't really, and he got into it a little bit afterwards. But I just remember, and he was young. I mean, his wife Becky was young. It was kind of surreal, and it was late. It was in late July. Cowboys season had started, so we didn't have a ton of media. Kept coming out, obviously, but again, just the magnitude of that moment and who did it. It was pretty incredible.
All right, so that's our number 1 seed.
And the other thing, I'll get into this real quick. This is what happened afterwards. So Kenny had a choice between all the late night talk shows called Tonight Show, whatever ABC was running at the time, and Kenny chose to go on David Letterman. So we went to New York, and he did that while the season was still going. August 11th, we played the last games,
right.
And 2 days later, he met the real singer Kenny Rogers, who was opening a Kenny Rogers, whatever his chain,
Kenny Rogers chicken
chain in Arlington. And the strike had happened, so the Rangers could do nothing about it. So, big moment, Kenny Rogers. That's coming up the 31st anniversary of it late next week.
31 years ago. All right,
Yep.
So that's our top seed. John, what is it going against in
Well,
first round?
it's going against the first.
This is one of your more interesting Brett matchups.
Right. It's going against the first game, the first regular season game at the ballpark in Arlington on August 11th, 1994.
April 11th.
April 11th, 1994. My mistake. August 11th was a strike. And if you worked for the Rangers, this may be one of my top 5 moments I have ever witnessed in club history, just because we became a franchise with that ballpark. Any Ranger fans that were in Arlington Stadium it was, I'm not going to say it was embarrassing, but it was just not a major league ballpark. And when that ballpark opened to such fanfare, and fans were so happy that we really had a ballpark. And to put it up again, this is a tough one for me because I agree that Kenny's perfect game, taken as a regular season moment, was pretty big.
Yeah, I did miss that, and certainly I've been here for another opening of a ballpark, but there were no fans involved with that.
A lot of cardboard cutouts.
I'm not going to get too much into that. There are a couple of matchups here. Let me just go through them very quickly. The 2 seed is the Rangers clinch their first AL West title versus the number 15, which is Nolan Ryan's 6th no-hitter. The 3 seed is Nolan Ryan's 5,000th strikeout in 1989 against Benji Molina's cycle at Fenway Park in 2010. And the number 4 seed is Josh Hamilton hits 4 home runs in 1 game versus the Rangers scoring 30 games against the Orioles. That's also an interesting matchup that the committee put together because both of those things did happen in Baltimore. So as you look through these, are there any other first-round matchups that you think are really interesting to you?
Well, it's kind of interesting that you got the 2 fights in the 8 and 9. You've got the Nolan Ryan fight against Robin Ventura, which in 1993, which achieved legendary status, right?
Yes.
And then you've got the punch of Rougned Odor in 2016 of Jose Bautista, which a lot of fans are obviously gonna remember. I'm not going to give my opinions on how I am going to vote in this, but the number 2 seed is a good one to me because that is a huge memory, and people remember it just because of the circumstances, right? Game went 5 hours. Rangers had basically blown a huge lead and come back to win. And again, when you think of clinches over the years, that one does stand. People, do you remember where we clinched in 2010? We clinched in Oakland for In 2011, where did we clinch? We clinched at home.
Right.
But people don't remember those, I don't think, like 1996.
Right.
And in 2023, there was no clinch. There was a loss in Seattle that clinched a wild card spot.
Right.
So I like the, again, I think they're all very, a lot of them are, it's hard to say there are a lot of no-brainers to me. There may be a couple, but just looking at it, there are not a lot of no-brainers. I would have to say and think, how would I, and again, what is a regular season moment? Is it something that, what is bigger? Something that's unexpected, like a perfect game or a no-hitter or a 4-home run game, or something like Nolan's 5,000 strikeout, which is going to come. The clinch, you pretty much knew. That's kind of the interesting mindset of the whole thing.
Well, and again, you've got, if I was seeding these into regionals, I might regionalize it to individual accomplishments versus team accomplishments. And listen, I do have an awful lot of interest in the 4 versus 13, the Hamilton home run game and the 30-run game. Both of those were in Baltimore. The 30-run game just came out of nowhere. That was in the 2007 season when this team was going absolutely nowhere in the middle of Ron Washington's first year. It was the first game of a doubleheader that night, and so there are a lot of people that don't remember. Rangers scored 38 or 39 runs that day. And you look up the guys, Ramon Vasquez, Travis Metcalf. You look up the guys that a lot of that, Jason Saltalamacchia. You look at the guys that provided a lot of offense that night. They're not exactly Ranger household names. So that, for me, and since I wasn't here for Kenny, and my time frame is 97 on, that might be the most unexpected moment, although Benji Molina's cycle was pretty unexpected. And I remember, people, that I said to John in the press box in Fenway, what if he hits a triple in his next at-bat? And John kind of laughed me off. I had the last laugh there, and I laughed for about an inning after that happened. But listen, I do have to say this, that of all the things that I have witnessed on a baseball field, and I have never covered a perfect game, I've covered several no-hitters, Josh Hamilton's 4-home run game in Baltimore and the 17 total bases he had that night, or 16 total bases, 17. 18 total bases.
4 home runs and a double.
That's right. And listen, I still think that the double was hit. It's too bad that in 2012 we didn't have exit velos and everything, because I still maintain that the hardest ball he hit was that double. But that was a truly historic moment for me to watch in terms of a personal accomplishment. It was just absolutely amazing. So I'm going to be real interested in how that one comes out. And I will have some interest in how the Odor punch versus the Nolan Ryan punch goes, because I think that will be a real separation in generations. In the social media age, the Rugi thing has just taken on a life of its own. But listen, the Nolan thing lived on the scoreboard in Arlington for 30 years. So, and I think I said in 2023 when this team won the World Series, I may have written that until this day, this club was more known for its punches than it was for wins. So that's another interesting moment.
But I do think it shows that there are, the Rangers, you can say what you want about the success or the early part of the years, but there's a lot of memorable moments, and the listeners of this podcast now will have a chance to decide. We're not going to judge you one way or the other. We're not. I will
judge. I like to sit in judgment.
Not going to try to prejudice your vote here, but I hope you'll participate in this first round, the rounds of what is this? The round of 32?
No, it's 16.
The round of 16.
We'd call this Rangers madness, right. But I think a lot of people have suffered from Rangers madness over the years, or just madness at the club. But for you fans, I think you will like this. We'll talk about it more as this thing progresses. But also, go to dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers, vote, and register your email so that you can hopefully win a prize. And the prizes do get nicer as we progress into the contest, and that's all I'll say.
So it'll be interesting to see where we stand next week here as we go to the round of 8.
That's right.
Correct.
The Elite 8.
Well, it's time for us to go. So thank you for joining the Sports Day Rangers for this week.
Thanks to Rick Helling for joining us for episode 11, and thanks to our producer, Chris Blake, who is also not a Nepo baby, but takes care of John as his son and keeps him in line sometimes.
And if you have any questions for us, you can ask us on X. And remember, go to dallasnews.com/sports/Rangers to vote for your favorite moment in club history, regular season history. And the voting is open now.
So long, everybody.